What is your first thought when you hear about artwork? Legacy? Intrigue? Vast sums of money? Or maybe boredom for a lot of you? So let's blow away that last preconception by showcasing one of the most unique ideas in automotive history, BMW's art car program. Now real quick, I have to make a disclaimer. This video has a slightly strange structure compared to my normal reverse gear episodes. Usually I just go beat by beat through the history of the subject with some dry humor thrown in for good measure. But it's really hard to do that with the art car program, given that each car is a legitimate piece of art from a completely different culture. We're not talking about 0 to 60 times or championship glory. We're talking about someone painting their subconscious, their thoughts, their emotions onto an automobile with no restrictions from BMW. This means we might jump around a little bit for the sake of narrative clarity. But with that all being said, let's take a deep dive into the deeper meaning of what a car can be. The origins of the art car program can be traced back to a French auctioneer and racing driver, Hervé Poulain. By 1974, he saw the dismal state of the auto industry and felt a little sad about it. So he had an idea to bring life back into the oil-starved racing scene. Get a contemporary painter to paint his race car. He was a massive fan of art and a massive fan of racing. Why not combine them together? Now, Poulain raced BMWs, and he sought a partnership with the German brand. BMW quite liked the idea, and gave Hervé a spare 3-liter CSL from their IMSA program, if he could find an artist to paint it. Remember, this had never been done before, so there was a real belief around the office that no one would want to express themselves on a race car, given the uncertainties and damage that can happen on a racetrack. Hervé, and by the way, I'm trying my best with these pronunciations. I wrote a little guide with accents and enunciation points for these names, but some of these are really hard, okay? I'm trying my best. Now, he had this covered, as he happened to be friends with the American sculptor and painter Alexander Calder. Having already painted 2 jet airliners, he was more than happy to get involved. The result was a 1975 BMW 3-liter CSL Group 5 Art Car No. 1. Covered in bright, vibrant colors arranged in swooping curves, it was designed to illustrate movement even while standing still, which is, spoiler alert, a huge theme for subsequent art cars. And he was inspired to style his paint lines against the body lines of the CSL in order to provide some contrast. And it ended up being one of his last works before his death in 1976. Now, the vibrant colors were a sight to behold, and a year after it was announced that there was so much buzz that another car was opened for a design. Minimalist artist Frank Stella was commissioned to paint another 3-liter CSL for 1976. In contrast to the bright colors of Calder, Stella's design was based off of graphing paper, serving as a perfect opposite to Calder. This highlighted the absurd body lines of the CSL, and it was another gorgeous masterpiece. And by 1977, the project had been cemented, with world-famous artists including Roy Lichtenstein and Andy frickin' Warhol painting BMW race cars. And after Ernst Fuchs and Robert Rauschenberg both painted 635 CSIs in 1982 and 1986 respectively, BMW decided to broaden their horizons and expand the focus to off of the racetrack. They also decided to commission 2 art cars per year. Michael Nelson Jagamara and Ken Dunn in 1989, Matsuo Kayama and Cesar Manrique in 1990, and A.R. Penk and Esther Mahalangu in 1991. The switch from racing cars to road cars also marked a shift in the purpose of the program itself. It wasn't just a cool marketing gimmick for racing, it was a chance to showcase different cultures on a different type of canvas. Esther Mahalangu covered her 525 in ornamental shapes to harken back to an Ndebele tribal art, while Matatsu Kayama incorporated Japanese cherry blossoms into his design. But in the 1990s, a noticeable shift began to show, starting with art car number 15. Abstract and unorthodox art arrived with Jenny Holzer covering her V12 LMR in thought-provoking phrases, while Olaf Eliasson covered his hydrogen-powered speedrunner in an ice dome to draw parallels to climate change. Cao Fei went as far as incorporating virtual reality technology into her M6 GT3. The bodywork is only exposed carbon fiber, but she designed an app to display spiritual Chinese designs on the black panels. Arguably the most abstract out of all of them, though, was the 2009 project by Robin Road, who didn't paint his Z4 at all. Instead, he hooked up paint sprayers to the wheel wells of the Z4 and used the car to paint what he titled an expression of joy, making the Z4 essentially the world's most powerful paintbrush. And all of this just highlights the beautiful fact that BMW give their artists 100% creative freedom for their works. They don't even pick the artists. They're chosen by a committee of museum directors and curators. BMW just selects the car that they provide. This is a huge risk for a major corporation to take, and I have to give them props for staying true to the ideals of the program. Speaking of massive risks, you may have noticed that several of these vehicles are racing cars, and BMW doesn't just shove them in a museum and throw away the keys. No, they enter them in competition. Remember, Polaire was a racing driver, and art car number 1 was his race car, painted by a friend. So they went to the 1975 24 Hours of Le Mans, driven by Polaire, Sam Posley, and John Jett. They qualified 11th, far faster than the rest of their class, and then on Saturday, they worked their way all the way up to 6th, and then their brakes broke, which is both ironic and very bad for a track with a 3-mile-long straightaway. But they fixed them, and they recovered, back up to 6th overall, but then their transmission blew and DNF'd them for good. We're all just lucky that the car didn't crash or explode in the process, ensuring its survival in the BMW Museum. Hervé would return to Le Mans the following year with Frank Stella's art car, now reworked with new turbos to make 750 horsepower, because that really helps the reliability of your transmission. But to be fair, the transmission did not blow. The engines did, but before both of their engines exploded, they managed to qualify 8th. Then their lead driver, Brian Redman, used those monstrous turbos to blast the BMW up to 3rd overall, before another engine failure retired them from the race after just 5 hours. Polaire returned to the Group 5 class with a different car in 1977, Roy Lichtenstein's 320i, using aerodynamics to generate lap speed. And it worked. 3rd time was the charm, and Hervé Polaire and Marcel Minot drove Lichtenstein's art car to finish 9th overall and 2nd in class, finally being able to stand atop the podium. And after a 1-year hiatus, Polaire returned with my personal favorite art car, Warhol's M1. And in the pouring rain, it was Polaire's best result. Yes, he finished 2nd in class again. However, improving to 6th overall, just 18 laps down on the overall winner. And then, they retired from Le Mans. Because of BMW's shift to using road models for art cars, we wouldn't see another race car compete for nearly 10 years. And when the M3 touring car did come along, it raced on the other side of the planet in the second half of the 1988 Australian Touring Car Championship season. Touring car legend Peter Brock drove Nelson's art car to finish 6th overall in the championship. Ken Dunn also painted an M3 Australian Touring Car Championship contender, but it was only used for a single race, something that would be a standard for all future projects. You see, these cars are just too valuable to race for a whole season, and BMW switched to entering each race car in a single event. But we would have to wait another 2 decades for that to happen again. Even Jenny Holzer's V12 LMR didn't compete. Sure, it entered qualifying for the 1999 24 Hours of Le Mans, but it never raced. Instead, it watched from the sidelines as its sibling number 15 LMR won outright. So instead, it would be down to Jeff Koons' M3 GT2 to pick up the motorsport mantle in 2010. Now, Koons went into incredible detail when designing his car, even suiting up and doing testing laps of the GT2 car and Sebring to put himself in the right mindset. It took months of development working with the engineers to apply the decals to the bodywork in the way that he wanted. Unfortunately, when they entered the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 2010, those months of effort resulted in just 53 laps of racing before retiring from a broken fuel sensor. And let's be honest, their 49th position in qualifying wasn't stellar either. Cal Fei's art car may not have had its VR technology in the streets of Macau, but it didn't need it. Augusto Farfus finished second in the Macau qualifying race and finished the main race in 4th overall, the best ever result for a BMW art car in any series. And by the way, huge props for BMW taking their art car to the Macau street circuit of all places. In case you don't know what Macau is, it's the narrowest, most insane street track possibly ever made. I mean, it's not exactly well known for cars finishing with all their paint where they left it, so I guess maybe it's fitting them to use the carbon fiber only one for that track specifically. Now, John Baldessari's painted the last motorsport art car for the IMSA Sports Car Championship. He put a bunch of large paint dots on his M6 GTLM to help it stand out at the Daytona International Speedway during the long stints of the Rolex 24. Unfortunately, the M6 GTLM wasn't very quick, and both cars qualified at the bottom of the GTLM class. But they had a much stronger race pace and managed to work their way up to finish 8th in class and 12th overall at the 2017 Rolex 24 at Daytona, a pretty good improvement given how big the GTLM class was by that point. And since that time, there have been plenty of new art cars, but to be honest, if you're an art car fan, it hasn't been a very good time. American graffiti artist Futura 2000 painted 3 M2 competitions as the 2020 art car, which, in my opinion, look pretty neat. They're sorta got a muted, lightning-esque paint job covering the car. But then BMW decided to ruin it by announcing that they were selling 500 limited editions of that M2 paint job. Not only is it just a paint job for exponentially more money, it defeats the entire purpose of the art car program. I mean, if Da Vinci painted 500 Mona Lisas, we wouldn't care very much about it, would we? And that's not the only crime the most recent art car program has committed. The newest art car used BMW's proprietary color-changing technology to paint the new i5 sedan however they wanted. And what they did with that limitless freedom was reboot Esther Mahalangu's 525i from 1991. It's a cool technology for sure, but having a new art car being a tribute to an older one just isn't very creative and very Hollywood-esque in its reboot sense. Luckily, that's not the only art car coming out in 2024. Number 20, officially, will be painted by Julia Maruku, and it will be unveiled at the 2024 24 Hours of Le Mans. And then enter it. Yes, not only is BMW entering the top class at Le Mans for the first time since 1991, they're bringing an art car to actually race in it as well. This canvas will be the M Hybrid V8 IMSA LMDH car, and the last time an art car visited Le Mans, BMW won, I'm just saying. Their IMSA program has been pretty underwhelming so far, and their Imola race in the World Endurance Championship hadn't done very well either. And both Porsche and Toyota look really good this year, Porsche having already won the 24 Hours of Daytona and the first round of the World Endurance Championship, so I'm not really holding my breath on BMW winning with the art car. But regardless, it will still be the most distinctive and unique car on the grid by a long, long margin.